Hi guys, Matt Easton here. So a few more longsword tips for people who are training perhaps without a group, or perhaps even reminder tips for those of you who are training with a HEMA group. I've spoken in a previous video about people sticking their hands out in guard positions, okay? And this often happens in these sort of guard positions, like posta di donna or a vom tag or posta di falcone, these sort of variations of a guard that's primarily for cutting. You can thrust from it, but fairly commonly used guard positions shown in lots of medieval and Renaissance treatises. And a bad habit that lots of people have, particularly actually you see it even in competition sparring, I think, because if my opponent's over there, people want to get their weapon closer to striking distance to hit the opponent, so they tend to leave their hands out, and this can make the hands very vulnerable, and of course hit the hands if you're able to hit the hands. And what you'll find is, yes, they'll still, if a person's got a sword here and you hit at their hands, they will still try and do their cut, so there is a danger for you if you're hitting their hands, but so long as you make sure you're out of their distance, because they'll be aiming probably at your head or shoulders or torso. So if you hit their hands whilst coming out, you can hit their hands and they can't reach you. And if you get the angle on it, if you see as I did then, so if someone's hands are in front of me, you can move traversing on a backwards line as well. You can make that even safer for yourself to do. But on the same tack as not sticking the hands out when you're in these sort of guards, not sticking the hands in front of the body, except, remember, when the blade is well in front of the hands, that makes your hands safer. They're not completely safe, but if my blade is in front of my hands, then it's harder for a person to strike at my hands directly, because essentially they have to, they will advance with my blade in their face. So the basic rule is, don't stick your hands out in front. Stick them out in front here with a medieval hilted sword, which doesn't have much hand protection on it, like a sabre or a rapier or a cutlass or a backsword might have, unless you've got the blade leading. Okay, so if you haven't got the blade, i.e. the point leading, and bear in mind if you do have the point leading and you want to cut someone, you really have to bring the point back before you can then give a cut. Okay, so generally the cutting guards in medieval swordplay have the point back and therefore the hands back as well, okay? Because it's only safe to have, if you have the point back ready to cut, loaded, in other words, ready to cut, you've got to bring the hands back to make the hands safe, okay? In terms of speed, remember this isn't slow, because you might think, oh, but if my hands are forward, then it's quicker for me to hit a person. Well, actual fact, no, as I've spoken about in previous videos, your time to hit the other person is not actually governed by the speed of your hands and the speed of your weapon. That's the quickest thing that you have connected to you at this point, okay? This can hit very, very quickly. What can't move so quickly are your feet, because I will start the fight at a distance whereby we can't hit each other. If I want to hit you, I have to step in close enough that I can actually hit you with my blade. And that takes more time than the movement of my hands and the weapon, okay? So in actual fact, during the time that it takes me to advance with my step into distance to hit, I can very easily extend my arms and extend my weapon and hit, okay? So you don't have to really actually worry about how close the hands are to the opponent, because the speed it takes, the time it takes for you to get to them to hit them is governed by the speed of your feet and your travelling, the time that it takes you to travel to the place to hit them, to find what we call measure, the place whereby you can reach them, okay? So, going back to what I was saying about sticking the hands out, equally, sometimes people stick their elbows out, okay? And again, in these guards, you see this, okay? So, when you're in guard with the hands back, nice and safe back here, ready to cut, none of your body is any further forward than the rest of your body, okay? My hands are about as far forward as my face, as far forward as my chest, as far forward as my knee and my foot. Okay, so all of me is as far back as I can get it, and my weapon is the same distance away. We only move the sword out to defend, bam, parry for example, or to hit, okay? However, what some people do is they remember to keep the hands back. They think, oh yeah, I must get my hands back because they're vulnerable, and what they do is they stick the elbow out. Yeah, it can be either elbow, but it's usually this one, it's usually the leading elbow, and they do this. If they do this, hit them here, okay? So when I'm introducing beginners to sparring in my club, the most common targets for me to tap and to tell them to bring those things back and get them out of my way and put them in a place whereby I can't hit them easily are the hands. So they start off doing this and I tap them on the hands and they go, oh, I must bring the hands back, and they do this and then they stick the elbow out and then I hit them on the elbow, and eventually they end up in a position. It doesn't really matter whether it's sort of Fiore's posta di donna, which can be forward weighted like this, backward weighted like this, or indeed it can be the soprano version, which is up here. The elbow, the hands and everything else should be no further forward really than this part of your body. Okay, no further forward than your knee is a good indicator. So there we go. Don't stick your hands forward except when you really have to. In other words, when you're hitting or when you're thrusting or when you're defending, parrying. And don't stick other bits of your body further forward than they need to be. Okay, then that goes for your elbow, potentially your knee, your feet. One final thing I'll say is that yes, sometimes you can use sticking a body part forward as a ruse, as a trick, to tempt the opponent into hitting that thing, okay? And this is most commonly, I think, done with the hands in actual fact. So in actual fact, these sort of guards, although they're safe with the point forward, if you bring the point slightly offline, the hands can become a tempting target. And what you can do is you can leave the hands out, take the point away to just tempt the person to hit at your hands, and when they do hit at them, of course you know what they're going to do, or you have a good idea of what they're going to do. When you do hit at them, you can slip the hands out of distance and then come back into the void created by the fact that they've just struck at you. So we're talking about tempos here. In their tempo they strike at me, in that tempo I remove my hands from the hitting place, the hitting distance, and then that charges up the blow naturally to follow back into the empty space left by their strike. Okay, so I hope that gives you some things to think about, and I'll be back with another video very soon. Cheers!